Hello, so in this video I'm going to talk to you about why I don't recommend you ever do a manoeuvre for a part 3 of a standards check. Now I did make a video 4 years ago now, it might be 5 years ago, where I went over the marking sheet for the standards check in great detail, and there'll be a link on the screen now to that video if you haven't seen it. And I did mention in that video years ago, I did say don't do a manoeuvre on standards checks. Now just recently I've had lots of emails from people asking me for training. There are loads of people failing standards checks and part 3s. It seems like the fail rate is going through the roof. Loads of instructors are having trouble because they're failing standards checks and part 3s. And one of the most common things I'm hearing from people is, I ask them, what did you do on your standards check or your part 3? Because it's pretty much the same thing. If you want to know what the difference is between a part 3 and a standards check, there is a detailed page on my website, the ADI part 3 page, and it goes into detail, but quite simply, it's the same test, it's just got a different name. But anyway, a lot of people are emailing me and they're saying that they're failing. And when I ask them why they failed, they're saying, well, I did a manoeuvre. And I'll say, well, there you go then. That's why you failed, because you did a manoeuvre. Now, let me get one thing straight. It's not that you can't do manoeuvres. It's that manoeuvres don't allow you to get a high enough score to pass. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. When you go on a driving test, let's imagine you're a learner driver going on a test. You get marked down when you do things wrong. So if you think about it, what I've always said to my pupils now for about 15 years is when you start a driving test, you've already passed it because you've already got no marks, you've got a clean sheet. You can only fail it really by doing things wrong and getting marked down. And this is where many driving instructors are going wrong, because they think, well, if I do a manoeuvre, and I'm not saying that instructors try and cheat or they don't try and take the easy option, but sometimes that is the case and people think, well, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. I'll do a manoeuvre and I can't be marked down because there's nothing really to go wrong. I'm not going to have traffic around me. I'm not going to have large roundabouts. I'm not going to have members of the public. So it's all going to be quite easy and I'll be quite safe and I'll pass. Now, the reason this doesn't work on a standards check is that standards checks and part 3s are both marked the other way round. So as an instructor, when you start, you have a score of 0 and you have to do things properly and do them well to gain points to score a certain amount to pass and get a grade B or a grade A. So that's where people are going wrong, you see, because on a manoeuvre, it simply doesn't allow you to demonstrate enough for them to give you a mark. And sometimes instructors have said to me, well, surely if you don't do it wrong, they have to mark you as a perfect score. And I say no, because if you look at the standards check marking sheet, and I'll put that on the screen now, if you have a look at this page or this sheet on the screen now, there are boxes on the right which show the score you get. And it says in one of them, 0, no evidence. So if you don't show the examiner evidence of you doing something, you won't get marked for it, you'll just get 0 because you didn't demonstrate it. For example, one of the things you get marked on is your timing of your instruction. So did you give instructions clearly and in good time to the pupil? Like, are you saying turn left too late, or are you telling them too early and confusing them? If you come out of the test centre and spend 1 hour in the test centre car park doing bay parking, you can't possibly be demonstrating that skill, so you'll get a 0. And I can promise you the examiners will not be impressed at all if you plan on doing 1 hour on the same manoeuvre over and over again. If you have a look at the top of the marking sheet, it says recap a manoeuvre. Now in the old days, and I mentioned this before in my other videos, the examiners did actually used to say to people, if you turned up for the old check test, which was the old standards check, and you said, I'm going to do a manoeuvre, let's say you're going to do some parallel parking, the examiners did used to say, please don't do more than about 15 to 20 minutes on that. And sometimes instructors weren't expecting that, and they were like, what? Because they'd planned the whole lesson on doing that. They don't want to see you doing just manoeuvres. So there's nothing wrong with manoeuvres. Yeah, if you need to do them, put the odd manoeuvre in, drive for 5 minutes, do a manoeuvre or two, and then drive for another 5 or 10 minutes, do a manoeuvre. You can do them, so don't avoid them. It's just that I don't recommend doing them at all, because it simply doesn't give you the opportunity to demonstrate your skills enough. And I've had quite a few emails lately, many emails actually, from instructors saying that they failed standards checks. And I'll say, why did you fail? and they'll say, well, I did a manoeuvre, and yet the examiner said, I'm sorry, but you just haven't shown me enough for me to give you a high enough score. So it's not that you're doing it wrong, it's not that you're not a good instructor, you're just not allowing the examiner to see enough of your skill to be able to mark you up. Think of it like going into an exam for university or whatever, and you just write a couple of sentences when you're supposed to write a whole essay. You might know what you're talking about, but you simply haven't shown enough. You've got to show them what you can do. Now, the DVSA themselves, you know about this probably if you're an instructor, they changed the driving test just over a year ago now, and they removed one of the manoeuvres. In fact, years back they removed one of the manoeuvres, back in about, 2011. And that was one of the reasons why, because I wanted to see pupils driving more. They don't want to see just manoeuvres, which is mainly a physical skill. It's quite easy to learn how to do manoeuvres. Sometimes people can struggle, but it's quite simple. They want to see more from you as an instructor, and I can promise you that they won't like it much if you just crawl around the car park for an hour. I've seen it happen, and the instructor got absolutely blasted at the end of it by the examiner. Because, quite simply, they were trying to just have a nice little easy 1 hour, and they thought they were guaranteed a pass. They had one hell of a surprise when they failed. And remember, you can only fail this test 3 times, and then that can be your job gone. You can lose your licence to teach, and you could be homeless. If that's your income, you could lose your home. So yeah, just wanted to talk to you about that. I have had other emails lately from instructors who have said things like they did a lesson on the mirrors. Someone emailed me about 4 or 5 months ago now, and they said they did a 1 hour lesson on use of the mirrors, and the examiner said it was a great lesson, but unfortunately you just didn't do enough for me to be able to mark you, because there wasn't enough of a topic there. Just checking the mirrors for an hour isn't really sufficient. So yeah, hope that video is going to help a lot of people who've got a part 3 or a standards check. If you do want to do any training with me, visit my website, firstdrive.com. I do tend to get booked up for quite a few weeks ahead, so if you want to do any training, let me know as soon as you can. But yeah, whether it's part 3 or standards checks, get in touch and have a look at all my other standards check videos. There are hours and hours. There's about 5 hours of standards checks at least now. If you haven't seen my other standards check videos, there's one where I go through the entire ADI1. That's a massive document by the DVSA. It's over 3 hours long, that video, and that is really, really vital if you've got a standards check. I actually watched that back myself when I've got my own standards checks coming up. There are 2 or 3 mock standards checks that I've done with instructors, and there'll be more of those coming soon, hopefully, if I can find instructors brave enough to film with me. And yeah, there's loads and loads of helpful advice. If you go on my website, there are pages and pages of information, and it's all free. You don't have to pay me for this. It's all completely free. I do it because I want to improve the standard of teaching. I want learners to be having better lessons. I'm not just here to make money. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon for more videos.